Bassheads, what's good? I know the title was, it's YouTube. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Ted and I talk bass. In this video, I'm going to give you some incredibly helpful information, but I want you to understand something, that what I'm going to tell you is a way. It's not the way. I can only tell you my experience, okay? But this is going to be very, very, very helpful for a lot of you, right? That especially if you're interested in gigging and you want to, whether casually, semi-professionally, professionally, whatever, this stuff is going to help you. This video is brought to you in conjunction with Songmaster Pro. It's one of the tools that I use to prepare for gigs, to learn songs when I need to learn them, make charts when I need to learn them, or just learn things for content or my own benefit. All right. So let's get into the video. I'm going to tell you about the different types of gigs, and I'm just going to go off the top of the dome, and I'm not going to go in order, but all of these things will, all of this information will assume that you can play a little bit already, or you can play, period, right? How much theory you need to know? Listen, man, I don't know a musician that is worse off for knowing any theory, not one. So how much you intend to learn, know, or want to learn, that's on you. That's your business. But the first type of gig that I want to talk about is the cover band gig. And when I say covers, I really mean anything where you playing somebody else's music. All right. And there are different levels to this, right? There are, your casual pickup gig, function bands, as they say in the UK, wedding bands. How much of you need to know the framework and the architecture of every bass line that you play. So like, if Brick House is the best example I have. If you play anything other than don't, you're not playing Brick House, right? That's just the fact. You need to be able to play that. But I can tell you, I have played Brick House maybe 1,000,000 times, and I don't think I've ever played it exactly like it is on the record. There's always some sort of variation. There's always some sort of me-ism that's put in there. And I don't know any other bass player that has played it exactly like the record. And in my experience, and this is, check your local listings on this, but my experience has been that most band leaders don't want you to play exactly what's on the record. They want you to put some spice in it. But when you're playing in cover bands, I think that cover bands are like one of the best places to learn how to do things, how to listen with your ears and your eyes. And if you are getting calls to sub or to play in a cover band, there's an expectation that there's some songs you just ought to know. And that what those songs are, I don't know. Keep watching, and I'm going to tell you something that you can do. And I want you to really do it, and then get back at me and tell me if it worked or not. All right? So hang tight. I'm going to sell a pedal, and I need to ship it today. So let's go get in the car. All right. So the next type of band, the next type of gig would be the gig, that I'm familiar with, is playing original music for an artist. Now, this artist could be whatever. They could be just doing their own thing on the local tip. They could be trying to make it and do show. I don't even know if people do showcases and stuff like they used to anymore. But in that situation, you gotta learn whatever has come before. In all these instances, you have to learn whatever has come before you, right? That's not saying that you can't do your own thing, but you have to do it within the context and the parameters of that music. And that goes for all of this stuff. And so, well, what is your own thing? this is why I'm always saying, what kind of music do you want to play? Who do you want to play it with? And you gotta play, you gotta play music based in context, right? But in both the original thing and in the cover band thing, getting into that kind of a circuit helps you to again how to listen with your ears and your eyes. Also, how to adjust on the fly, because when you're playing live, I don't know the last time I played a gig where nothing, I mean absolutely nothing went wrong. There's always something, but the experience teaches you how to adjust and solve for these problems when they arise, right? So you just, discovery is in the doing. You just kind of gotta do it, right? So there's cover bands, and then why are you in the levee? Listen, the gate is in there. Anyway, so in both of those instances, you have to play, again, that's a stop sign. You have to play within the parameters of the thing. You have to play with stylistic integrity. Obviously, you need to have good time and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? It goes without saying. But you have to hear the entire song. So understanding some theory is helpful. Understanding things like song form, understanding the natural movement of chord progressions in Western music. What happens over time is that you'll just be able to hear things. I swear to God, it will happen, but it has to. It can't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen staring at tabs. It doesn't happen, playing with some 4-bar loop over and over again, right? So you kind of got to do it, right? Off the top of the dome, the next thing is now if you play with high level like corporate bands, there may be a different level of study that needs to happen with that. And how you prepare, it's dangerous, I think, that's why I'm always saying it's not the way, but it's a way, right? Because everybody learns differently. Everybody's going to process information differently, how you retain information, but you have to be able to retain information. And what I have in my own life have kind of come to is that if I know the song, they're going to be lyrical cues. They're going to be audible cues from you go to the bridge when you hear blah, 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 right? Or this lyric that's the cue for blah, 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 whatever, right? So you can't just know the bass line. You got to know the whole song. And I know that that's something that you've heard before. You got to know the whole song. As much of the whole song as possible. But what happens is the more you do it, somebody can throw, I promise you, I'm playing a festival this coming weekend, and I know that I haven't gotten any of the songs yet, but the rehearsal is tomorrow. So I'll probably get the song sometime tonight. And I can't always share that kind of stuff because, it depends on what the artist wants, if they want their stuff out there in the streets, whatever, right? So I can't make content off of everything. Unspoken rules, right? But I know that my ear's gonna work. I know that the music is not gonna be I know this because they know, hey, we only got one rehearsal before this festival, and, just, circumstances or whatever, and that's what it is. And so all the training, on the job training is going to come into play. You know, and there's also tracks and things like that. And you just go and you have a good time. You know, you fall back on your training. You're all the timing of all that, you know. Hey man, and I don't care what the level of theory is. It could be like, oh, I'm going, you know, this song is you know, it's a 2/5 in the key of A flat. You know, or and what does a 2/5 look like? Well, I just got to be, well, how do I address a 2/5 on my instrument? We've talked about that before, right? We've talked about that before on the channel. Now, another type of gig that I have done a lot is musical theater, where you got to read, right? Now, that's another skill. You ain't got to read if you don't want to read. You don't want to read, but there's some gigs that it's like, hey, this is a production that is a month away, and that means there are charts or there's, you know, actual notation and rehearsals, and that's a matter of prepping, and in with that comes time management, you know, falling back on those skill sets, understanding how to make notes. There's so many things that are so doable. They're so doable, but you have to do them. You have to do them. I played in musical theater pits for 6 years. 6 years. I've done a lot of, and in the Bay Area, I haven't done any proper theater production since I've been back in New Orleans. That's just because the scene is a little bit different. And for a long time I was the only black dude. And I'm only saying this because a lot of the brothers didn't read. You know what I mean? And when all things are equal, it's like, I don't need you to be you know, flashy. I need you to read what's on the page. I need you to be able to follow a conductor. Anyway, but let me tell you how I got into musical theater, and this philosophy of discovery is in the doing. I had a really good friend of mine, Sierra, who I went to school with, and her boyfriend at the time was a bass player, and they, you know, she was a musical director, and she played, you know, accompanist, musical director. She did, you know, choir director, vocal director, all that stuff, right? She did all that. Super talented woman. But her boyfriend at the time they had a production coming up, and he couldn't do it. And so she asked me to do it. And I was actually really, really nervous. I was scared to do it. And something told me, do this gig. And it was life-changing. And so she's like, here is the book, right? And at the time, my reading was all right, but it wasn't, you know, here's the book and here's the cast recording, right? I would play along with the cast recording and make my notes in the book. And then when we had rehearsals, I would make certain notes. That's where you learn. That's where you learn how to take notes and follow cues. You know, actors will forget lines and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's just like any other field. It's completely doable. Again, there's a different level of preparation. If I get called, you know, like this gig that I'm doing on the weekend for the festival, I'm getting the music like that, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to do a shitty job, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to prep. Of course I'm going to prep, but I'm going to not necessarily do the same level of preparation, because I literally have no idea what's being played. None whatsoever. Road closure? Are you kidding me? See, in New Orleans, we got these 300-year-old pipes, and the pipes have always got a problem. So when you drive, and you just never know what kind of pothole you're going to jump into, or anyway. So yeah, if I were gonna do the preparation level is different. I used to play with this outfit, an agency band. I won't name the agency band, but they paid a lot of money. And this band was typically fly dates, right? And they hit you up and they say, we playing in Chicago. All right, cool. Here is the song Pool, right? When you got a good band leader is gonna be like, here's the song Pool, but pay attention to these blocks or whatever, and they have a drop box. And the drop box will have all the charts in them, right? Because in a situation like that, you'll have different people coming in and out. And so they will only call people who have kind of proven themselves to know how to survive in that kind of environment. I only know how to survive in that kind of environment because I have done it a lot, right? So I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything while I'm driving here and trying to pay attention and not road rage on anybody. Like just for me. But yeah. So when after I run my errand and ship this pedal and get back in the studio, I'm gonna show you what I think you ought to do to be able to start stepping your foot into that arena. Some things you're only gonna know by doing them. You're only gonna figure them out when you get over the fear of falling on your face, right? You're gonna miss some notes, right? You miss some notes, so what? You miss a note, you make a mental note, and you say, I need to learn this, I need to do this part. I used to mess up this song, the Ronnie Laws tune, Friends and Strangers. I don't know why. I used to mess it up all the time. And then I gave myself like a mental, I don't know if that's the song, but I gave myself a mental blockage, and I had to get over that. And I said, hey man, sit down and learn how this tune goes. Sit down with the recording and learn how the tune goes. You're not gonna remember everything that the bass player is playing on the recording. That's a different level of study. If you're studying something to get inside of that player's style, that's a different thing. Ooh, you know what? I don't know where you got your driver's license at. Crackerjack box? You understand what I'm saying? That's a different type of thing. Sometimes you just gotta have a survival. How can I get through this tune? Right? But I'm gonna tell you, I'm almost to my destination. I'm gonna tell you the first thing. You want to understand what bands in your area are playing. And 9 out of 10 times, they all gonna be playing the same tunes. All right? So, thing number one, I'll show you in detail when I get back to the house. But thing number one that you want to do is go to your Google, and you want to Google the working bands in your area. Google who's playing. Find about 2 or 3 bands. And a band that's working or has worked, they are gonna have a song list. You can download the song list or whatever you gotta do. Man, I would take 2 or 3 song lists and put them joints in the Chat GPT or the LLM of your choice and cross-reference them joints, man, and be like, okay, I see that this song, and this song show up on everybody's list. Let me learn this song. What happens is you start finding connections between songs. And you're like, all of this stuff is made out of the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just like gumbo. Gumbo, you have different types of gumbo, but gumbo, every gumbo got a roux, right? All right, let me go to this place. I'm getting lost. We'll sit down and talk about it in a second. All right, so we're now back at the crib, back at the fort. So this is what I would do. You're gonna go over to your Googles and whatever area you're in, let's say I'm in Indiana, right? Indiana cover bands. Cover, 45 best Blue Water Kings band. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I can tell from the website, I know from the website, the whole thing. This is a offshoot of the Lucky Devils band. I used to play with the Lucky Devils in the Bay Area. What does that mean? What does that mean, Ted? What does that mean? Watch this. Lucky Devils band. Now, this band comes up, the Nola Dukes. You notice anything? See that? Lucky Devils band. It's making sense now? It's an agency band. So they have bands in different areas. You see what I'm saying? They have bands in different areas. And that was just the first band that I pulled up. The Blue Water Kings band. It's all under the same corporation. And so what you see here is that this band covers that area. This band covers that area. This band covers that area. And that's the one that I played with. But now check this out. Songs. Now, you're not going to learn all those songs in one sitting. But what I was saying in the car is you look and you see all these different song lists. A lot of this stuff is going to be the same. And my experience with Lucky Devils in the Bay Area was that there was never a rehearsal. But if there were special notes, the producer of that show or of that event would send out an email and say, here are the specials. Here are requests from the family, the bride and groom know these songs. If there's a whatever, right? But then that's when the whole professionalism thing comes into play. But again, it starts somewhere. And, I've talked about this before, but this is why, it's like, you take gigs that make sense to take. If you want the experience, you can't get the experience at your house. So sometimes you're going to play a gig that doesn't pay anything. And when I say it doesn't pay anything, I mean, it ain't, the monetary value of that gig is not the thing, but pay is not always money. So, I don't know. You do whatever you want to do. You can sit on your soapbox and say, I ain't never leaving my house for less than $300. Well, you're going to stay home a lot. You're going to stay home A lot. Now, one thing about bands like this is people tend to not sub them out. Now, in the Bay Area, it was very, very active and, but you get a gig like this, these gigs can pay fairly well. They can pay fairly well. But again, more often than not, you have to be invited into the band. Then you have to build up a reputation. So like with a band like this, they'll have a little rating system. You don't know about the rating system, but you'll know when your phone stops ringing or if it rings. You know what I mean? Let's go back to Indianapolis. But whatever you have to do, you take the song list from those bands, cross-reference them, you'll see the same songs on there all the time. It ain't rocket science, it's pocket science. Music garden bands. Wedding bands near me. I mean, look at this. Now, this isn't really that's probably an agent, right? An agent that books out bands. 45 best cover bands to hire in the Jukebox Heroes. Look at their price range. Jukebox Heroes. They probably got a website. Where's the website? We can find it. Oh, there it is. jbhband.com. jbhband.com. This is their Jukebox Heroes. Now, song list. Now, this is you could look at the guys and they're some older gentlemen. Also, if you are playing with a lot of females in your area, what do the females like to sing? You got to know some Beyonce. You're going to need to know some Alicia Keys. You're going to need to know some Janelle Monáe, some Badu maybe, depending on the age of the singers as well, right? So I see these guys, Jukebox Heroes. It's a bunch of older white gentlemen. I'm not surprised by their song list, right? It's their genre, right? So that goes back to what kind of music you want to play. Who do you want to play it with? So let's see who else we have here. The Sex Pistols. Now, things like this, the Aegis Band, they're probably going to play some older music. They're probably going to play a lot of rock. They've got different options. Now, they don't have a song list, but they've got videos. I'm not going to play any. They play Motown. Look, they play Motown. They play Southern soft rock. Right? I'm not going to play any of it but look, respect my girl, play that funky music. Man, those are tunes that you're just supposed to know. You're just supposed to be able to get through those songs. And look, this video is too long at this point. It's too long at this point. So that's the reality of it. You could learn all that stuff has importance, but I'll leave you with this. I think that if you let your curiosity, this is just my opinion. I think if you let your curiosity guide you and learn the next thing that you need to know. I know that sounds super vague, but learn the next thing that you need to know. I need to learn how to play Uptown Funk. How do I do that? And then over time, you build up the skills to then pick, because it's all language. Let me know what you think in the comments. It ain't rocket science, it's pocket science. Peace.